Welcome to Storytime on the front porch of the Mission Highway Studio. I have several stories to share today, stories that will run the gauntlet of emotions. Recently I found a folder I've been keeping for around 26 years. The folder is full of stories people and organizations have sent to me. For instance, here is a story about a cat named Ugly. Let me read this story to you. It says, everyone in the apartment complex I lived in knew who Ugly was. Ugly was the resident tomcat. Ugly loved three things in this world: fighting, eating garbage, and, shall we say, love. The combination of these things, combined with a life spent outside, had their effect on Ugly. To start with, he had only one eye. He was also missing an ear on the same side. His left foot appeared to have been badly broken at one time and had healed at an unnatural angle, making him look like he was always turning the corner. His tail had long been lost, leaving only the smallest stub, which he would constantly jerk and twitch. Every time someone saw Ugly, there was the same reaction. That is one ugly cat. All the children were warned not to touch him. The adults threw rocks at him, hosed him down with water, squirted him when he tried to come into their homes, or shut his paws in the door when he would not leave. Ugly always had the same reaction. If you turned the water hose on him, he would stand there getting soaked until you gave up and quit. If you threw things at him, he would curl his lanky body around your feet in forgiveness. Whenever he spied children, he would come running, meowing frantically, bumping his head against their hands, begging for love. If you picked him up, he would immediately begin suckling on your shirt, earrings, or whatever he could find. One day, Ugly shared his love with the neighbors' dogs. They did not respond kindly, and Ugly was badly mauled. From my apartment I could hear his screams, and I tried to rush to his aid. By the time I reached where he lay, it was apparent Ugly's sad life was almost at an end. As I picked him up and tried to carry him home, I could hear him wheezing and gasping, and I could feel him struggling. He must be hurting terribly, I thought. Then I felt a familiar tugging, sucking sensation on my ear. Ugly, in so much pain, suffering, and obviously dying, was trying to suckle my ear. I pulled him closer to me, and he bumped the palm of my hand with his head, then turned his one golden eye toward me, and I could hear the distinct sound of purring. Even in the greatest pain, that ugly, battle-scarred cat was only asking for a little affection and compassion. At that moment, I thought Ugly was the most beautiful, loving creature I had ever seen. Never once did he try to bite or scratch me or even try to get away. Ugly just looked up at me, completely trusting in me to relieve his pain. Ugly died in my arms before I could get inside, but I sat and held him for a long time, thinking about how one scarred, deformed little stray could so alter my opinion about what it means to have pureness of spirit and to love so totally and truly. Ugly taught me more about giving and compassion than 1,000 books, lectures, or talk show specials ever could. And for that, I will always be thankful. He was scarred on the outside, but I was scarred on the inside, and it was time for me to move on and learn to love truly and deeply, to give my total to those for whom I cared. Many people want to be richer, more successful, well-liked, and beautiful, but for me, I will always try to be ugly. And here's another story which needs the setting explained. In technical terms, it is a faction story, one which is fiction yet illustrates real events or facts. For the Gen Z generation and those born after them, let me explain the panic going on in the world just before January the 1st of 2000 about the Y2K millennium bug. Worldwide anxiety was created due to the fear that Microsoft and IBM's PC-based systems, which use two-digit year codes like 98 and 99, instead of four-digit codes like 1998 or 1999, would fail at the turn of the century. Apple's core operating system was built with four-digit year dating, so it wasn't as susceptible to what people feared might happen. But I remember talk about banks and power grids failing, society coming to a standstill, and even that the world would come to an end. So sometime around the year 2000, this enterprising writer put together a story titled A Different Kind of Millennium Problem. And here's how it reads. While browsing through some dust-covered archival material in the recesses of the Roman section of the British Museum, a researcher came across a tattered bit of parchment. After some effort, he translated it and found it was a letter from a man named Plutonius with the title of Magister Factorium, or Keeper of the Calendar. It was written to one Cassius. It was dated, strangely enough, December the 3rd, 2 BC. The text of the message follows. Dear Cassius, are you still working on the Y0K problem? The change from BC to AD is giving us a lot of headaches and we haven't much time left. I don't know how people will cope with working the wrong way around. Having worked happily downwards forever, now we have to start thinking upwards. You would think that someone would have thought of it earlier and not left it to us to sort it all out at the last minute. I spoke to Caesar the other evening. He was livid that Julius hadn't done something about it when he was sorting out the calendar. He said he could see why Brutus had turned nasty. We called in the consulting astrologers, but they simply said that continuing downwards using minus BC won't work. As usual, the consultants charged a fortune for doing nothing useful. As for myself, I can just see the sand in an hourglass flowing upwards. We have heard that there are 3 wise men in the East who have been working on the problem, but unfortunately, they won't arrive until it's all over. Some say the world will cease to exist at the moment of transition. And end of story. While this story is amusing, the event of the birth of Christ going from BC to AD did turn the world upside down. You could say it had a much greater impact on people's lives than Y2K. Let's end our time together here on the porch with the story of Gideon. Gideon, whose story is recorded in the book of Judges, was just a farmer and he had no desire to be anything more than a farmer. He didn't have religious or political ambitions. He never dreamed of being a military leader, and yet God had something special planned for his life. The Israelites had been delivered from Egypt and had settled in the Promised Land. And if you read through the book of Judges in the Old Testament, you discover that the people of Israel kind of bounced back and forth from being faithful and obedient to God and being disobedient. The Bible introduces Gideon as a man threshing wheat in a wine press, a task he performed in secret to hide it from the Midianites who were oppressing the Israelites. You see, this was after 40 years of peace and prosperity when the Israelites began once again to wander from God's will. And as often happened, their moral decline was followed by military oppression from the outside. This time it was the Midianites who were putting the hurt on the Israelites. The Midianites were a nomadic people who roamed the desert in what is modern-day Saudi Arabia. And what would happen is, the Midianites would wait until the people of Israel were harvesting their crops, and then they would sweep down upon them, stealing their crops and herds and destroying what they couldn't take with them. This went on for 7 years. and the Israelites were getting really tired of it. And so the people cried out to God to deliver them. And God called Gideon to lead an Israelite army to defeat the Midianites. And here is how it all went down. An angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and informed him that he was to deliver Israel from the Midianites. Well, after a little convincing, Gideon issued a call across Israel to arms, and people responded. As they came, Gideon began to get a little nervous. It was one thing for a farmer to say he was going to lead an army into battle, and it was yet another thing for a farmer to look out over the 32,000 Israelite men who had responded to the call and realize the responsibility of what he had done. And especially when the Midianites had 135,000 soldiers. And so Gideon had a little talk with God. He said, "Okay, God, if this is really what you want me to do, you have to give me a sign. So here's the deal. I will put a sheep's fleece on the ground tonight. If in the morning the ground is dry and the fleece is wet, then all systems will be go." The next morning Gideon looked and the ground was dry, but the fleece was sopping wet. Thinking there could possibly be a scientific explanation for what happened, Gideon again prays and says, "God, I don't want to annoy you, but let's try it the other way. I'll leave the fleece out again tonight, and in the morning, if the ground is wet and the fleece is dry, then I'll know that I need to listen to you." He gets up the next morning, and sure enough, the ground is covered in dew, and the fleece is completely dry. And so Gideon begins to think, God must be controlling nature just for me. And this is where the story gets really interesting. Gideon is motivated now. He looks out at this army of 32,000 men and thinks, this could be exciting. We can do this. And God says, not so fast, Gideon. You've got too many men. Now that would bring any military leader back to earth really quickly. Too many men? You can never have too many men in an army, especially if you're already outnumbered 4-1. But God obviously didn't think so. You see, God wanted this to be a God thing. God said, you have too many warriors, and when they win, they are going to think they did it all by themselves. So, tell them that whoever is afraid can go home. So Gideon gets up, makes the announcement, and 22,000 men leave. 22,000 gone, just like that, leaving Gideon with 10,000 men. And just as Gideon is getting his head wrapped around what has happened, God says, you still have too many men. God says, take the men and go down to the river for a drink. Those who get down on their knees and lap the water like a dog, put them in one group, and those who cup their hands in the water and bring their hands to their mouth to drink, put them in another group. Well, only 300 of the soldiers drank from their cupped hands, and I'm sure Gideon was thinking, man, I hope I get the dog lappers. But not so. God told Gideon to keep the men who drank from their hands and to send the rest home. At this point, Gideon didn't seem all that convinced of the rationality of the plan. So God told him to sneak down to the enemy camp and listen to what they are saying. And that's what he did. He took one of his leaders with him. They snuck into the Midianite camp and eavesdropped on a conversation going on around a campfire. Two Midianites were talking, and the first one said, I had the strangest dream last night. I dreamed that a loaf of barley bread rolled down the hill into the camp and flattened one of our tents. And the second guy says, your dream can only mean one thing. Gideon and his men are going to whip us. Just think of this. God is not only working with Gideon, but he is working in the Midianite camp as well. God is going before Gideon and preparing the way for a great victory. So Gideon divided his 300 men into three groups. and he gave each man a horn and a clay jar with a torch in it. Just after midnight, they surrounded the Midianite camp, and on the given signal, they blew their horns and broke the clay jars, revealing the torches. The Midianites panicked. The Israelites blew their horns again, and the Bible says that the Lord caused the warriors in the camp to start fighting each other, and those who weren't killed fled in confusion. What a great victory. But what is so encouraging is that God wasn't depending on Gideon to win the battle. He was just looking for a willing servant. God went before Gideon, paving the way for the victory. I'm reminded of the message God gave Zerubbabel when he was having problems rebuilding the temple at Jerusalem. God said, "It's not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts." I appreciate the time you have spent watching this podcast, and perhaps in some later podcasts we'll find more stories in this folder to share. So be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss them when we do. And until we come your way again, this is Wayne Murphy with a very cheerful goodbye.
When the world turns the